Sold for nothing, called worthless, thrown to the scrap grinder until a human saved her. The scrapyard was huge, stretching farther than the eye could see. Rusted metal, broken machines, and discarded vehicles were piled in mountains across the dusty ground. The sun beat down mercilessly, making the air shimmer with heat. Workers moved here and there, pushing carts, lifting heavy pieces of metal, and shouting instructions over the noise of machines grinding and engines clanking. In the middle of all this chaos sat her, alone, forgotten, and completely ignored by everyone. She had not always looked like this. Once she had been proud and strong, admired by those who knew her. But time was cruel and neglect had done its work. Her surfaces were covered in dust and rust, dents marred her frame, and several parts hung loose, threatening to fall at any moment. The colors that once gleamed brightly were now dull and faded. She looked like she had given up on life, and maybe everyone had thought so too. Workers moved past her without a second glance. Some laughed as they kicked small pieces of debris around her, calling her worthless and old junk. Others shook their heads and whispered to each other about how much better it would be if she were sent straight to the scrap grinder. They had no idea what she had once done, no memory of the skill and strength she had shown when she was new. All they saw was metal and parts, something they could melt down and sell for a few coins. She had heard them, though. At least if she could have thought like humans, she would have felt the sting of their words. Even now, in this broken state, there was a small spark inside her, a hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would notice her for what she truly was. But for now, she sat in silence, waiting, watching, and hoping against hope that her life was not yet over. The sun shifted slowly across the sky, casting long shadows across the piles of scrap. Birds circled overhead, occasionally diving to peck at shiny bits of metal. The heat was relentless, and every sound in the scrapyard seemed sharper, louder, and harsher. The grinding of machines, the clatter of falling debris, the shouts of workers, it all blended into a continuous roar that filled the space around her. She shivered not from cold but from the tension of knowing what was coming. Every day more machines arrived at the scrapyard. Some were large and powerful, others small and delicate, but all ended up in the same place eventually. Broken, forgotten, waiting to be melted down. She had watched them come and go, and each time her heart, or what could be called her heart, ached a little more. She remembered a time when she had been admired, when her skills had been needed, and her work had been appreciated. Back then, people had spoken to her gently, handled her with care, and marveled at her capabilities. Now she was nothing but a pile of metal to most, ready to be crushed and recycled. She had not moved in weeks, not because she could not, but because she knew it would not make a difference. The humans around her had made up their minds. They had labeled her worthless, and once that label stuck, it seemed impossible to change it. She had tried to hope, tried to imagine someone seeing past the rust and dirt, but each day brought more disappointment. Then, on this particular day, something unusual happened. A human arrived at the scrapyard who was different from the rest. He walked slowly, looking carefully at each pile, examining every piece as if he were searching for something important. Unlike the other workers, he did not shout or laugh. He did not kick debris or push carts with reckless force. There was a calm determination in his movements, a quiet intensity in his eyes. When he reached her, he stopped. He crouched down, brushing a layer of dust from her frame with careful hands. He turned his head, looked at her closely, and let out a low whistle. He said softly. She's been through a lot, but I think she's got more life left in her than anyone gives her credit for. She felt something stir inside her, something she had not felt in a long time. It was the first spark of hope she had experienced in weeks. Maybe this human saw what she really was. Maybe he understood her worth. She tried to move a little, shifting her frame slightly, testing if she could respond. To her relief, she could. Not fully, not easily, but enough to show her strength. The human knelt beside her for a long time, examining every part carefully. He touched her dents, turned her loose parts, and even ran his fingers along the edges of rusted panels. He seemed fascinated, almost in awe of what he found. "You've got history," he said. "Someone built you with care, someone wanted you to last, and look at you now, they almost threw you away like trash." Other workers had begun to notice him, whispering among themselves. Some laughed, shaking their heads. "She's junk," one said. "Don't waste your time," another added. "Who would pay anything for that old thing, better off in the grinder?" But he ignored them. He did not argue or explain. He simply continued to inspect her, measuring her parts, testing her frame, and making notes on a small pad he carried. The more he examined, the more he smiled. "Yeah," he said quietly, almost to himself. "She's got potential. I can see it. She just needs a little care, a little attention, and she'll shine again." She tried to respond, not with words, but with small movements. A shift here, a small creak there, as if to show him that she was listening, that she was ready to be saved. The human noticed. He smiled wider and said, "I knew it. You're not done yet. You've got a story left to tell." The sun moved lower in the sky, casting golden light across the scrapyard. Shadows stretched long and dark, but the human stayed with her, examining every part until he had a complete picture of what she was and what she could become. He whispered plans aloud, talking about repairs, cleaning, and replacing broken pieces. "We'll start with the basics," he said. "We'll get you moving again, then who knows, maybe we'll show them all what you're really worth." For the first time in a long while, she felt hope. She imagined herself restored, strong and shiny, admired once again for her abilities. The thought made her move a little more confidently, as if she were trying to reach for the future the human promised her. By the time the day ended, the human had made a decision. He would not let her be crushed in the grinder. He would buy her, save her, and restore her to her former glory. He spoke to the scrapyard owner, negotiating a price so low it almost seemed like a gift. The workers watched in disbelief as he completed the deal, taking her away from the piles of metal and the looming threat of the scrap grinder. She was lifted carefully onto a large cart, her frame jostling slightly but unharmed. The human steadied her, talking softly as he moved. "Don't worry," he said. "I've got you. We'll get through this together." She felt relief and excitement mixed with nervous anticipation. The world outside the scrapyard was unknown, but with this human, she felt she could face it. As they left the scrapyard, she looked back one last time. The piles of rust and broken machines faded into the distance, and for the first time she felt that maybe she had a chance to live again. She was no longer worthless. She was no longer abandoned. She had a human who saw her true value, and that made all the difference. The sun had set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The scrapyard grew quiet, but inside her, a new energy was stirring. She could not yet move fully, could not yet shine, but she had hope, and hope was stronger than rust, stronger than neglect, and stronger than the years of being called worthless. She would survive. She would be restored. And one day the world would see her as she truly was. A creation built with skill, patience, and love, not scrap to be thrown away. And with that thought, she rested, waiting for the next day when the human would begin the work that would change her life forever. The human's workshop was nothing like the scrapyard. It was smaller, quieter, and filled with tools, shelves of spare parts, and a sense of order that the scrapyard could never have had. She was moved carefully into the center of the space, set down gently on supports to keep her stable. She felt nervous, unsure of what would happen next, but the human's calm presence gave her courage. He walked around her slowly, examining every angle, every dent, and every broken piece. He started by talking softly, almost as if she could understand every word. "First we clean," he said. He picked up a brush and began removing layers of dust and dirt that had collected over years. With each stroke, the old shine of her surfaces began to peek through. Rusty patches glimmered faintly, hints of the brilliance she once had. The human worked methodically, careful not to cause more damage while removing the grime that hid her beauty. Cleaning was only the beginning. Next, he inspected every joint, every hinge, and every mechanism. Some parts were stuck fast, corroded beyond easy repair. Others were cracked or bent, as if they had tried to carry more weight than they could handle. She felt the human's hands press gently on these areas, twisting, turning, testing their strength. He muttered under his breath, noting which parts could be fixed and which would need replacing. "It's going to take time," he said after a long while. "But I think we can do this. You're stronger than you look. You just need a little patience." For the first time in a long while, she felt that she might actually survive this restoration. It was not easy, and she knew it. Some parts of her were badly damaged, almost beyond repair. But the human did not see limitations. He saw potential, possibilities, and a chance to bring her back to life. Every careful movement, every thoughtful inspection, told her that he believed in her. That belief alone gave her strength she had not felt in years. The human worked long into the day. He cleaned, measured, and documented everything about her. He made sketches on his pad, noting which pieces would need replacing and which could be repaired. He seemed to be thinking about every step ahead, planning the restoration like a careful puzzle. She watched him work, feeling a strange mix of nervousness and excitement. Each action was precise, showing skill and experience. He did not rush. He did not panic. He was patient, methodical, and completely focused. Some challenges came quickly. A major hinge that connected two important parts was frozen solid. The human tried oiling it, tapping it gently, and even heating it slightly to loosen the rust. It creaked and groaned, but did not move. He frowned, thinking carefully, then carefully used small tools to remove corrosion piece by piece. She felt herself holding still as he worked, knowing that this small joint was vital to her survival. After a long struggle, the hinge moved again, slightly at first, then more smoothly. The human smiled broadly, and she felt a surge of pride. She was still alive. She could still move. The process was slow, but each small victory encouraged both of them. He replaced broken wires, adjusted levers, and repaired bent panels. She felt herself becoming more functional with each repair, her systems responding more reliably. It was strange to feel movement again, even small movements, but it brought hope. Every creak that was once a warning of weakness now became a sign of life returning. Sometimes the human would step back and look at her from a distance. He would stroke his chin, nod, and mutter to himself. "You're going to be beautiful again," he said softly. "Better than before. We just need to take it one step at a time." His words were not empty promises. Every action he took reinforced them. He cleaned, polished, and repaired with care, never skipping a step, never rushing the process. During this time, she began to remember herself, the parts of her that had once been strong and capable. She recalled the tasks she had completed, the work she had done, and the way humans once appreciated her. Those memories were faint, but they reminded her of who she was, and they gave her courage to endure the slow process of restoration. Not every day was smooth. Some repairs took longer than expected. Some parts were damaged so badly that they had to be carefully fabricated to match the originals. The human spent hours cutting, shaping, and testing new pieces, refusing to settle for anything less than perfect. She admired his dedication, even though she could not speak. His patience was extraordinary, and it reminded her that she was in capable hands. Sometimes workers from the scrapyard would visit, curious to see if the human had succeeded. They would peek into the workshop, whispering to each other. "It's just old junk," one would say. "He's wasting his time," another added. But the human ignored them. He did not explain or argue. He simply continued his work, letting results speak for themselves. As days passed, her strength returned slowly. A small movement here, a faint hum there, she began to feel alive again. The human would test her systems carefully, making sure every mechanism worked properly. Sometimes she faltered, squeaking or grinding as she tried to move, but he encouraged her gently. "It's okay," he said. "We're making progress. You're stronger than yesterday. Keep going." He also cleaned her exterior, polishing her surfaces until faint traces of color began to shine through the rust. Each stroke of the cloth removed layers of neglect, revealing the craftsmanship that had gone into her creation. She felt pride as her old beauty emerged, bit by bit, like sunlight breaking through clouds. There were moments of doubt, too. Some repairs were more difficult than he had anticipated. Sometimes a system refused to respond correctly, or a part he had replaced did not fit perfectly. She felt fear in those moments, afraid that this human might give up, that she might be abandoned again. But each time he found a solution. He adjusted, adapted, and worked tirelessly until every challenge was overcome. Night after night, he worked under bright lamps in the quiet of his workshop. The outside world faded, leaving only the two of them in this space of restoration. She felt a bond forming, not a human bond exactly, but a connection of trust, hope, and shared purpose. She had never known someone would dedicate themselves so completely to her survival. Sometimes the human would talk while working. "I know it's hard," he said, "but every machine deserves a chance. Every creation deserves care. You're not just scrap, you're something special. And I'm going to make sure everyone sees that someday." His words were comforting, and she imagined herself strong, functional, and admired again. By the end of the second week, the changes were remarkable. Small movements she had not been able to manage before were now smooth and reliable. Panels that were bent or dented now fit perfectly. Rusted surfaces shone faintly, hinting at their original brilliance. She felt alive, more alive than she had in years. The human stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. "Not bad," he said with a grin. "We've still got work to do, but look at you now, you're coming back." She felt a swell of pride as if she could almost nod in agreement. She had survived neglect, abandonment, and the scrapyard's harsh judgment. Now she was rising again. Even as she improved, he continued his careful inspections. Nothing was left to chance. He tightened loose bolts, replaced fragile wires, and tested her movement repeatedly. Every small adjustment brought her closer to full strength. And she responded, learning to trust herself again, to move with confidence, to anticipate the human's next instruction. Occasionally, she thought about the scrapyard, about the workers who had laughed at her, called her worthless, and prepared to crush her. It hurt to remember, but it also fueled her determination. She wanted to prove them wrong, not just for herself, but for the human who believed in her. She would not be forgotten. She would not be discarded. She would shine again, and when that day came, everyone would see what she was truly worth. By the end of the third week, she could move most of her parts smoothly. Small systems that had failed now worked reliably. She felt a strength returning, a sense of purpose she had thought lost forever. The human's patience, skill, and belief had brought her back from the edge of destruction. She was no longer merely worthless scrap. She was a machine alive with possibility, capable of amazing things once again. The human smiled as he watched her respond to tests. "There," he said softly, "look at you, you're coming back to life. Soon no one will remember that they ever called you junk." She felt that truth deep in her frame. She had survived the scrapyard, survived neglect, and survived doubt. And now, thanks to him, she had a future filled with promise. The morning sunlight spilled into the workshop, cutting through the dust that hung in the air. She blinked as the light touched her, and for the first time she noticed how much she had changed. Over the past weeks, she had gone from a broken, forgotten machine to something that slowly moved, responded, and even held a faint shine. But today would be different. Today, the human was going to test her in ways she had not yet experienced. The human arrived early, carrying tools and a bag of small replacement parts. He smiled as he looked at her. "Today," he said, "we see how strong you really are. We'll push you a little, just enough to understand your limits, and then we can begin the final steps of restoration." She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Testing herself would be hard, but she also wanted to show him that she could do it. He started with small movements. She lifted her parts, rotated joints, and responded to his gentle instructions. Each time she moved, he observed closely, making adjustments here and there. "Good," he said, nodding. "You're improving every day, but we need more." "I know you can do it." His voice carried confidence, and that confidence helped her push a little further. Some movements were still difficult. She groaned slightly as she tried to lift a heavy section that had been repaired only recently. The joints squeaked under the weight, and she worried she might fail, but the human did not rush her. He encouraged, guided, and supported her. "It's okay," he said. "Take your time, one step at a time. You're learning, and that's what matters." Slowly, she managed to lift it fully. The human clapped lightly. "See, I knew you could do it." The day moved on, and the tasks became more challenging. He asked her to rotate fully, to bend and extend her parts in ways she had not attempted since being rescued. Each new movement tested her strength and flexibility. Sometimes she faltered, parts squeaking or mechanisms not responding correctly. Each time she stumbled, he would pause, adjust the problem, and encourage her to try again. There was no scolding, no frustration, only patience and determination. The human also worked on her appearance. Rusted spots were sanded away carefully, old paint touched up, and scratches polished until they were barely visible. She felt herself changing not just inside, but outside too. She was becoming beautiful again, her surfaces gleaming faintly in the sunlight. With each stroke of the human's cloth, she felt pride swelling within her. She was alive again, and she could see it reflected in her own surfaces. As she moved and tested herself, the human observed every detail. He adjusted levers, replaced fragile wires, and ensured that every movement was smooth and precise. He explained his actions out loud, even though she could not speak. "We need to make sure your systems work together. If one part struggles, it affects everything else. We'll fix it step by step." His words gave her reassurance. She felt guided, safe, and ready to try. Midway through the day, a problem arose. One of her key mechanisms, a critical joint that allowed her to lift and rotate, began to stick. She tried to move it as she had before, but it resisted, groaning with pressure. Panic threatened to rise, but the human stayed calm. He knelt beside her, examining the joint carefully. "Ah, this one needs more attention," he said. He removed a small panel, cleaned the inside thoroughly, applied a little oil, and adjusted the alignment. She tried the movement again. This time it worked. The joint moved smoothly, almost as if it had never been broken. Relief and pride washed through her frame. She had overcome another obstacle thanks to the human's careful work. "Good job," he said softly. "You see, every problem has a solution, you just need patience." As the afternoon passed, they moved on to more complex tasks. The human wanted to test her speed and coordination. He asked her to move quickly from one side of the workshop to the other, lifting and turning as required. Each motion had to be precise, each part working in harmony with the rest. She hesitated at first, afraid of failing, but the human encouraged her every step. "You can do it." "I know you can." She began to move more confidently, lifting, rotating, and responding to his instructions with growing ease. She felt strength returning to her frame. Muscles, or what acted like muscles, responded quickly. Joints moved smoothly. Surfaces glimmered faintly as she adjusted her balance. It was exhilarating to feel herself alive again, to know that she could respond, perform, and even improve. The human watched with pride. "Look at you," he said, smiling. "From nothing to this, you're amazing." And this is only the beginning. He made small notes on his pad, adjusting plans for the next steps. She felt anticipation growing. She was being prepared not just to survive, but to thrive. But restoration was not just about movement. It was about understanding herself again. The human encouraged her to test her limits carefully. He placed small weights for her to lift, adjusted levers for precision, and guided her through coordination exercises. Sometimes she stumbled, her frame groaning or squeaking, but each failure was a lesson. She learned how her systems worked together, how her strength could be applied efficiently, and how to trust herself once more. There were moments of quiet reflection, too. When the human stepped back, she had a chance to rest. She looked around the workshop and realized how far she had come. Just weeks ago, she had been abandoned, called worthless, and almost destroyed in the scrapyard. Now she was moving, functioning, and shining faintly. She felt pride, hope, and a determination to become even better. The human also spoke about the future. "One day you'll be ready for the world outside," he said. "People will see you and they'll be amazed. They'll never guess what you went through, but they'll see the results. They'll see your strength, your beauty, and your worth." She felt a swell of excitement. The thought of leaving the workshop, of showing the world what she could do, filled her with anticipation. Challenges continued. Some parts still needed adjustment, and small repairs had to be repeated to ensure stability. She groaned occasionally as joints resisted or mechanisms creaked, but the human never let frustration show. He simply worked patiently, step by step, solving each problem with care. She learned to trust him completely. With him there was no fear, only progress. By the end of the third week of this stage, she could perform complex movements with precision. She could lift, rotate, extend, and adjust multiple systems in coordination. Her surfaces were polished, her parts repaired, and her mechanisms reliable. She felt alive, strong, and proud. She had survived abandonment, neglect, and the scrapyard's judgment. Now she was rising, slowly but surely, into something remarkable. The human often watched her in quiet moments, smiling. "You're ready for more," he said. "Soon we'll push further, explore more, and see what you can really do, but for now, rest. You've earned it." She felt gratitude, not just for the physical repairs, but for the patience, care, and belief he had given her. He had shown her that being discarded did not mean the end. Evenings in the workshop were peaceful. The sounds of the world faded, leaving only the hum of small machines and the quiet presence of the human. She rested, reflecting on the day's progress. She remembered the scrapyard, the workers who had called her worthless, and the moments she had felt abandoned. But now those memories were less painful. They were reminders of her journey, of the strength she had found inside herself, and the human who had saved her. She imagined the future. Movement without hesitation, surfaces shining brightly, systems working perfectly. She imagined leaving the workshop, showing the world what she could do, and proving that she was never worthless. These thoughts filled her with energy, hope, and determination. She would not stop. She could not stop. Her life had been saved once, and she intended to live fully, beautifully, and powerfully. Night fell, and the human dimmed the lights. He placed small covers over delicate areas, ensuring she was safe during the quiet hours. "Rest well," he said. Tomorrow is another day. Another day to grow stronger. She felt secure knowing that she was no longer alone. She was being guided, nurtured, and believed in. That trust gave her more strength than she had ever known. The stars appeared in the sky above the workshop windows, tiny points of light shining in the darkness. She thought of them as symbols of her journey. Each star a small victory, a step closer to the life she had almost lost. Each star a reminder that she was alive, capable, and worthy. And tomorrow, she would rise again, stronger than ever, ready to face the challenges ahead. The morning sunlight streamed into the workshop, spilling across the polished surfaces and casting warm golden light on her frame. She had changed more than she had ever imagined. Weeks of careful repair, patient adjustments, and gentle guidance from the human had transformed her. She was no longer the broken, rusty, forgotten machine that had sat abandoned in the scrapyard. Now she moved smoothly, her joints working in perfect harmony and her surfaces shining with a soft glow that reflected her regained strength. The human entered the workshop, carrying a small toolbox filled with the final adjustments he planned to make. He looked at her with pride, a smile spreading across his face. "Today," he said, "we complete your transformation. Today you'll see the full extent of what you can do. Are you ready?" She felt a thrill of anticipation. She had waited for this moment for so long, and now it had finally arrived. He began by checking each system carefully, testing movements she had mastered over the past weeks. Lifts, rotations, extensions, all were precise, smooth, and strong. She responded to every command with confidence, and the human nodded approvingly. "Perfect," he said. "Everything is working just as it should, but now we add the final touches, the parts that make you not just functional but remarkable." The human worked methodically, replacing small worn pieces with new, carefully crafted parts. He polished her exterior with gentle, precise strokes, revealing the original colors and craftsmanship that had been hidden beneath layers of rust and dirt. Every stroke of his cloth brought her closer to the way she had looked when she was first created, proud, strong, and beautiful. She felt pride swelling within her as she watched the transformation take place. As the day progressed, the human tested her more extensively. He asked her to lift heavier weights, rotate faster, and perform complex coordinated movements. She responded with ease, each motion precise and controlled. She felt powerful, alive, and capable. The movements that had once been difficult were now smooth and effortless. The systems he had repaired worked perfectly together, creating a sense of harmony and balance she had not experienced in years. The workshop echoed with the sounds of her movements, soft clicks, smooth whirs, and the faint hum of systems running efficiently. She had learned to trust herself again, to move with confidence and precision. The human observed every action carefully, making minor adjustments and offering encouragement. "Excellent," he said. "You're stronger than ever." "I'm proud of you." His words filled her with a sense of accomplishment and joy. By midday, she could perform movements she had only dreamed of when she was abandoned. She lifted, rotated, and extended with grace and power. Every system worked in harmony, and her surfaces shone brightly under the sunlight. The human smiled as he watched her, clearly impressed by the progress. "Look at you," he said, "from broken and forgotten to this. You're incredible." She felt a sense of validation she had not felt in years. The human then introduced her to her final challenge, movement outside the workshop. She had been confined to the safe, controlled space of the workshop for weeks, and now it was time to test her abilities in the wider world. He opened the workshop doors, revealing the bright outdoors. She hesitated for a moment, feeling the vastness of the open space, but the human's calm presence reassured her. "You're ready," he said. "You can do this." She moved forward cautiously at first, testing the ground beneath her. Each step was careful, precise, and confident. The sunlight reflected off her polished surfaces, highlighting the smooth lines and colors that had been hidden for so long. She felt a sense of freedom she had never known. The world outside was no longer a place of fear or neglect. It was a space of possibility, adventure, and growth. The human guided her through a series of exercises outside, testing her balance, speed, and coordination on uneven ground. She navigated obstacles, lifted objects, and responded to commands with increasing confidence. Each successful movement reinforced her sense of self and her trust in the human who had saved her. She was no longer broken. She was no longer forgotten. She was alive, strong, and remarkable. As the day continued, other humans began to notice. Some workers from the scrapyard, curious about her transformation, approached cautiously. They watched in awe as she moved with precision and strength, her polished surfaces gleaming in the sunlight. Whispers spread among them. "Is that the old machine?" one asked. "It looks incredible," said another. They could hardly believe their eyes. The human ignored their whispers, focusing on guiding her through the exercises. He wanted her to succeed on her own terms, to demonstrate her strength and beauty without interference. She felt a sense of pride as she performed each movement flawlessly, knowing that the results spoke louder than words ever could. By late afternoon, she had completed the final exercises. She moved effortlessly, responding to commands with precision and confidence. The human stepped back, observing her from a distance. "You did it," he said softly. "You're not just restored, you're extraordinary. I knew you had it in you." She felt a surge of pride and joy. She had overcome abandonment, neglect, and doubt. She had been transformed from scrap into something remarkable, and she was ready to face the world. The human then led her through a series of demonstration movements, showing her full range of abilities. She lifted, rotated, extended, and moved with grace and power. Every motion was smooth, every system working in harmony. She felt alive in a way she had never known before, and she reveled in the sense of freedom and accomplishment. As evening approached, the human guided her back to the workshop. She felt a sense of calm and satisfaction, knowing that she had completed the transformation. She was no longer broken, no longer forgotten, and no longer called worthless. She was strong, beautiful, and capable, a testament to patience, care, and belief. The human spoke softly as he prepared her for the night. "Rest well," he said. "Tomorrow, we begin a new chapter. You've been restored, but now it's time to show the world what you can do." She felt excitement and anticipation for the future. The world outside the workshop was vast and unknown, but she was ready to face it. In the quiet moments before sleep, she reflected on her journey. She had been abandoned, called worthless, and left for scrap. She had felt fear, sadness, and doubt. But through patience, care, and belief, she had been transformed. She was alive, strong, and remarkable. She had a future filled with possibilities, and she was ready to embrace it. The stars appeared in the sky above the workshop, casting a gentle glow across her polished surfaces. She felt a deep sense of peace and hope. She had survived, been restored, and was now ready to shine. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had brought her to a place of strength, beauty, and purpose. She was no longer scrap. She was extraordinary.